Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, we have a very special guest this episode. It's Ray Negron, who's been with the Yankee organization for nearly 50 years, first serving as a bat boy, then a special assistant, and having a very close relationship with the late owner, George Steinbrenner. He's going to share some of those stories with us, as well as some stories about some of the Yankee greats, such as Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, as well as discuss some of the books he's published and the film he's produced. A lot of great stuff here, so let's bring him on. Hi, Ray. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be on. Thank you for having me.
Now, you've been with the Yankee family for a number of decades. I think most Yankee fans are familiar with you. There might be some younger fans or newer fans who may not totally know your story, but we'll get into that. Now, people can follow you on both Instagram and Twitter at Ray Negron Yanks, as well as check out your website, the Ray Negron Story, where they can read a little bit more about you, as well as check out some of the published books you had, some of the children's books you published, which we'll also get into. Let's just get right into it. You're this young kid, you have this chance encounter with George Steinbrenner, and you end up with a dream job that every kid from the Bronx would want, and as long as this relationship with the New York Yankees has spanned a number of decades.
Right. I'm going on my 49th season with the Yankees. Started in 1973. Chance encounter. I was outside Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium, the real Yankee Stadium, and we were doing what we used to do in those days, which was graffiti all around the Bronx. And this one particular day, a car drives right on the sidewalk. Two guys jump out. Me and my crew, we all started to run. I trip over one of the guys' ankle. I go down. I'm caught. I'm put in a holding cell. And after putting me in a holding cell, I was supposed to be transported over to the 44th precinct. But then the guy that caught me and his security, the security guy said to the guy that caught me, "There's nothing that you can do for these people." And so when he said that, the heavier guy said, "Give me the kid." And next thing you know, they take me to the Yankee locker room. And they're giving me a uniform, and they made me the bat boy that night. And the guy that caught me was George Steinbrenner. I mean, think about it. All of a sudden they're dragging you, they're arguing because one guy was saying, you can't do nothing for these guys. And next thing you know, they're taking me into the Yankee locker room as we're walking in. And I was a big fan, okay? I was a big fan. And so as I'm walking in, all you see are the great Yankee pinstripes, and I can't believe this. Like, what could this be, And next thing you know, the guy says, you're either going to work off the damages or you're going to go to jail. Now you decide, And I mean, I was dumb. I wasn't that dumb. So naturally, that night I ended up being the Yankee bat boy. And in essence, to be in the locker room like that, in a situation like that, and you're seeing all your heroes walking in one by one, and they're staring at you and all this kind of stuff. And you see like Bobby Mercer, and you see Thurman Munson walk in. And I mean, it was surreal. It was like being in Oz. And George Steinbrenner was the wizard. And Pete Sheehy, the historic clubhouse man, he was like a munchkin, the king of Munchkin land. You know what I'm saying? It was just unbelievable.
And would George check up on you, just make sure you're staying on the straight and narrow and staying out of trouble?
After the game, this was a Friday night game. He had just brought the team that year. Okay, this was 73. So he had just brought the team. We were playing the Cleveland Indians. Remember, he was from Cleveland. He had tried to buy the team the year before, and he was rejected. Okay, so it's ironic that would be the very first game, and the Yankees beat the Indians. And when after the game, he walked into the clubhouse like he had just won the World Series. So he was like shaking everybody's hand, and it was just unbelievable. And then afterwards, he came over to me and he said, Did you enjoy your job, son? And I said, "Yes, very much." And he said, "Would you like to keep it?" And I said, "I would love to keep it." And then he told me, "You won't do graffiti outside this ballpark again," and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was my very first day. And after that, we just developed a relationship because I was an example. He used me as an example that you could help these kids. Okay. And he always checked on me. He always had me deliver things up to his office, and I was always like running errands for him. And you name it, I did it for him. And later on, I ended up being like the babysitter to his youngest son, who at the time was 7 years old, and he would Hal Steinbrenner. Okay, so imagine. So these were all the different variables, and to say that I owe this man my life, I owe this man my life, you know?
So how many years you serve as a bat boy?
I was a bat boy 73, 74, part of 75, and then I got drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. I was a second round pick by the Pirates. So I went and I played for them for a second. And then after I got released, I came back to the Yankees in the 76 season. And ironically, like in 75, parts of that season, I played with Willie Randolph. Okay. He was with the Pirates. That was his first team. Okay. In the minor leagues. And then when Willie got traded to the Yankees in 76, I got released by the Pirates, and Steinbrenner brought me back to go and work for the team all sorts of situations. You know what I'm saying? I worked in the clubhouse. I did videos for them. I cleaned the sports room. They used to have a weight room. The Yankees were the first team to have an exercise room that Mr. Steinbrenner brought from football. So we were the first, and that room was my responsibility. And just any scenario that the boss needed, I did. And that's it.
Now, you mentioned Thurman Munson before, and obviously it was a little bit before my time, but what was it about him that just fans of that era just loved him so much? Maybe, similar to fans of my era, just loved Don Mattingly, and why was he just so respected in the clubhouse?
Well, remember, first off, he was our captain, and he was a no-nonsense guy. He didn't take no crap from nobody. He didn't want to be captain. We weren't allowed to call him captain. If I said, "Hey, captain, hey, what's with that captain crap?" You know what I'm saying? So that's just the way it was. And he was a good man, you know what I'm saying? Like on the field, he was tough as hell, boy. And then off the field, he was a true family guy. I used to drive him to Teterboro Airport. Okay. And I drive him to the airport, and then he would get on his private plane and fly home to Canton just to be with the family. If we had an off day, or we had a night game after a day game, then he would fly right home, and I would go and drop him off, and then I would go pick him up. And I was always happy to do it because, I would have a brand new Cadillac to use while he was away. But Thurman Munson was, he was a man's man, and he was the people's guy. He did a lot of things that people never saw him do. He would go to hospitals and things like that, and cameras weren't allowed because he didn't want to take the focus away from the kids. That's just the way he was, which is a big reason why I do the things I do. Mr. Steinbrenner, and the way he was from the standpoint of philanthropy. Thurman was the same way. Bobby Mercer was the same way, and I like to feel that we teach the guys of today, or we taught the guys of today, the aspect of the importance of being philanthropic, because you're being blessed by the aspect of playing in the major leagues and making so much money. And yet we live in a society where people are so poor and hurting and things to that effect. Hey, man, share the wealth.
Now, everyone thinks of George as like, this tough guy, but he's actually, done a lot of good things for the community, for people, with charities and so forth. And obviously you were there for a lot of it, and you had a front row seat. But what are like some of the things that he has done for the community that maybe most fans never even heard of?
Well, George Steinbrenner was a tough guy. He was a very tough guy, and he didn't take no crap for nobody. And he didn't like to see like well-to-do guys act like like they were better than the rest. You know what I'm saying? I mean, honestly speaking, he treated us little guys better than his rich friends. You know what I'm saying? And I'll never forget that one time I'm in the office with him, and he was throwing a little party for all of his college cronies, guys that he had known that went to Yale, Harvard, Williams, all these well-to-do schools. And so I'm in the middle, standing there with these guys, and they're telling their little war stories. And so I started looking down because I was embarrassed. Like, I mean, I'm there with a high school education, barely, okay. And so he looked at me and he said, Negron, put your head up. Raise your head, young man. And so I said, what do I have to raise my head about? And he said, because you went to the greatest university of all. And I'm like, what's he talking about? He said, you went to the University of Steinbrenner, and none of these schmucks could have made it through that school the way you have. And I felt very proud of that. And that's George. That was the man. That's who he was. You're talking about, he's the only owner in the history of sports that, forget about Yankee Stadium, isn't in the Bronx. That's in the little corner there, a little safety section right off the bridge, right off the Third Avenue bridge and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, you can just run right over the bridge into the city, right? But George Steinbrenner was the only guy, the only owner. He would be the only owner that was not afraid to go into the Bronx, and not with security either, okay? And meet the people and shake hands and share his wealth and go into a Spanish restaurant and buy everybody food and make everybody feel like, hey, man, I'm equal to George Steinbrenner. Can you believe that?
Now, most people associate you with the Yankees, but what they may not know is that you're actually a published author. A couple of your books, again, Yankee Miracles was #1 for a while for Amazon Books, as well as the other book, The Boy of Steel, which reached #2 on the New York Times bestseller list. So, what is it about that, that sort of genre of children's books that you have a fondness for, and you seem to accelerate it and have a real passion to write about that?
Because the game of baseball belonged to the kids, and some schmuck adults decided that it didn't belong to the kids. Okay, and this was my way of trying to, in some form, give it back to them. And so I've always had incentive towards writing these books. I mean, I've written over 30 books, okay, but 5 have been published. That's just the luck of the draw, those are the ones that they felt were the good books, even though I thought all my books were good. But that's why I do that, and every time, I've done over a dozen movies. Okay, and in my movies, it's just the aspect, again, like I said, it's always about giving back and giving back to the game, and even though I love the arts, I learned more about the arts being with the Yankees. George Steinbrenner was a big Broadway guy. He could play instruments, and he loved to sing, even though he couldn't. Okay. And he loved talking about Hollywood, and he loved talking about his favorite movie stars. And so the more he talked about that kind of stuff, the more I wanted to do that kind of stuff. And when Reggie Jackson came to the Yankees, I was fortunate enough to do commercials with Reggie. And in turn, with doing the commercials, I ended up signing with Warner Brothers, and I got to do, like I said, quite a few films.
Now, just getting back to Reggie, and you were there for a front row seat. What was your opinion on the whole Reggie-Billy Martin relationship?
It's the saddest, next to Thurman Munson dying, it was the saddest part of my life with the Yankees, because I love both of them so much. Okay, Billy was like a father, and Reggie was like a big brother. and they both did so much for me all the time. I used to, after the season, believe it or not, I used to work for Reggie Jackson, answering fan mail, doing all his little odd jobs. And then I would go and work for Billy Martin in his cowboy store, doing inventory and stuff like that. Imagine I worked for Reggie in the morning until like 4 o'clock, and then I would go over to Billy Martin's cowboy store and work for Billy, you know. And then after I did my inventory, we would go out to dinner. So I mean, I really truly loved the both of them, and to see that the dislike that they would have for each other was very painful, because it was, no matter what said, they did not like each other. Okay, they did not like each other, egos and everything like that. But you know, when it was time to play, Reggie delivered. Okay, Reggie delivered, and Billy appreciated it. You know, one time after Reggie hit the 3 home runs, they were sitting in the office in Billy's, and they had their arms around each other. And when I walked into the office and I looked at the two of them with their arms around each other, I said to myself, Ray, just stand there and watch it and take it in, because we're probably not going to get too many of these moments. And I take it in.
Now, the next year, 78, the team gets off to a bad start, as we know, and obviously they let Martin go, and then they, hire Bob Lemon, and, they're able to turn the season around. But what was it at the start of the season? Was it bad luck? Was it injury? I mean, why do you have such a bad start?
No, well, let me put it to you like this, and I'm going to be honest about this. Yes and no, no, yes and yes. Okay, and by that, let me just say that when they let Billy go, he had just won 5 games in a row. You can look it up. Okay, so the team was about to make that turn. Okay, Lemon didn't do crap. Okay, Lemon was nice because all he had to do was make a lineup. Those guys were pros. They knew what they had to do. Lou Piniella. Oh, come on. These were Thurman Munson, the Greg Nettles. These guys were professional baseball players. So they didn't even need anybody. You know what I'm saying? If anything, Billy could get them to get, he knew how to, in essence, ignite, So Lemon had nothing to do with us winning that year. We were going to win no matter what. Okay. And it's, and that, and that's all there is to it, period.
And as for this current squad, I'll call them like the Aaron Judge squad, which has been knocking on doors since like 2017 till now.
Right.
I mean, what is it that's just missing from this unit that they just can't punch through and, just get to a World Series and, bring home a Yankee ring?
Listen, look, let me put it to you like this. In the 70s, you had Munson, Mercer, you had Reggie. I mean, those were spectacular teams. And then they had spectacular managers. I mean, Billy Martin was the greatest manager of all time. And then you had Lemon was decent. Dick Hauser was a great manager. Gene Michael was good. So, that was a professional baseball team. Those are good players. In the 90s, the Derek Jeter era, tremendous. I mean, you had 2 teams there. You had the team on the field, and then the team on the bench could possibly give the team on the field a good game. You know what I'm saying? Because you had Strawberry and Cecil Fielder, and you had a lot of good players on the bench ready. I mean, Steinbrenner stacked it, and he put together a hell of a team. All right. And then we go, that team went up until 2009 with Tino Martinez and guys like this. And it's not fair to try to make any kind of comparisons between these guys and any of the teams that have been great during the last 49 years, because this team is not ready to even be talked about in the same light. They might improve and move on. Aaron Judge is a tremendous player, but he can't do it alone. You see, I don't have to tell you, they're a good baseball team, and they're going to be competitive because, they have a terrific organization that gets them the players that they need.
And are there any particular players you like watching these days?
I love watching Gio Urshela. You know what I'm saying? I love he's got the best hands I've seen at third base since Greg Nettles. You know, and he's a tremendous individual and extremely philanthropic, and he knows that he's blessed to be in the major leagues. And I like that aspect about him. I like his makeup, a tremendous makeup, and so I mean I'm a fan of Geo's, big fan of Geo's, and you know Aaron Judge is a baseball player. You know he's very solid. You know if he can stay healthy, God knows what he can do. You know if he stays healthy, God knows what he can do. You know I still believe in Gleyber Torres. I believe that now that he's at second base, if he's left alone, that he will be a very decent. I'm not saying he's going to be Roberto Alomar, but I think he can be a very decent baseball player for the New York Yankees as a second baseman. And then the question is, who's going to, you know, DJ LeMahieu is a good baseball player naturally. You know, he's a very good baseball player naturally. The question will be, where is he going to play? Which in turn, if he plays third base, what happens to Gio? Will he become a utility guy? If he's a utility guy, then he'll be one of the best utility guys in the game, you know? And the outfield, it'll be interesting to see how they shore up the outfield.
And just getting back to George, obviously in his last few years, he kind of took a step back from the team, and Hal and Hank ran it. But what was like the last time you really got to physically speak with George?
It's funny. There's a picture out there. The last time that I spoke to him, it was me, him, and Reggie, the three of us. Ironically, it was the three of us together. And he had asked me how was my book coming along, meaning my memoir. Because naturally, on any book, I would always go to him and ask him, can I do this? Can I do that? If I was going to do a movie, I would say, can I go out and do this movie? And naturally, he always said yes. And the last time we were together, he had asked me, how was the book coming along? And I'm getting it out soon, ASAP, because it was my love letter to him. That book represented my thank you, I love you. And as was my, I produced an animated film that starred Richard Gere, Chaz Palminteri, Danny Aiello, Cyndi Lauper. I mean, a lot of stars and a lot of the Yankees. It was the last time that Yogi Berra worked was for me doing his voice in Henry and Me, my animated film. And there again, that was a thank you to George Steinbrenner. And at the end of the film, there is a caption of two guys, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, flying to the boss's suite, and then the boss climbs in the car, and they drive off to heaven.
And unfortunately, we lost Hank Steinbrenner about a year or so ago, and you had that program with him called Hank's Yanks, which helped a lot of underprivileged kids with travel baseball and so forth. But like, I guess, how would you maybe describe your relationship with Hal Steinbrenner the way it is now?
I was his babysitter, okay, at the time, and we were very close when he was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, But I'm not going to say that we're close now. I have great respect for what he's doing with the Yankees, and happy that he's following, doing what his father would want him to do. So I'm very happy about that. I wish we were closer, but I was very close to his brother, but then me and his brother were the same age per se. But I'm very proud to see what Hal has been doing, and he's a good man and a good dad. And that's the bottom line. Good family man. He's just a good family man, and I'm happy to see how he's grown up.
Now, you briefly mentioned Yogi before, but do you have any other stories about maybe Old Timers Day or some of the classic Yankees?
Well, I was lucky that I got to, believe it or not, I got to see Joe DiMaggio get a base hit. And what happened was he was playing Old Timers Day. And the last time that he would play, the game was being played at Shea Stadium. And he hit a line drive to center field. And he said, "Nah, I'm done. I don't think I'm going to play any more Old Timers games." And I was happy to have been able to have seen the classic swing from Joe DiMaggio. It was cool. It was cool to be able to say that I got to know him a little bit. I enjoyed Mickey Mantle. Even though Mickey Mantle told me to go F myself the first time I met him, because all the so intimidated by him that they used the bat board to get all their autographed balls. So they kept on sending me to ask Mickey for the ball, ask Mickey for a ball. And by the fourth time, when I handed him the baseballs, he threw them on the floor and he said, "Man, get that!" He just went crazy. But again, it was my fault because I let the players use me to get to the Mick. You understand? And later on, Mickey, because of Billy Martin, because Billy saw what had happened, and he told Billy was his guy. He was the leader of the pack, and he told Mickey that, you shouldn't have done that. It wasn't the kid's fault. And so Billy brought me over to the Mick, and the Mick actually apologized.
And since you're an experienced bat boy, I mean, what advice would you give for any future bat boys, or any recommendations for the job?
Just write letters, and let them know that you want to be a bat boy. Because that's how I've seen. Don't do graffiti, because there is no George Steinbrenner alive. And if you do graffiti outside Yankee Stadium, you're going to jail. You know what I'm saying? So don't do that, because you ain't gonna get a job that way. Kids ask me that all the time when I go to speak at schools. But send letters, and eventually someone may do what they got to do and give you an interview. And it's the greatest job in the world. It really is. In Long Island, the chief of the sheriffs was his name is Earl Toulon, and he was a bat boy for the Yankees during my era. So I mean, but he says the greatest job he ever had was that as Yankee bat boy. How about that?
Well, Ray, it was a pleasure to have you on. I want to thank you for just sharing these amazing stories, and just thank you for all the work you do, your philanthropy, your community service work, and congratulations again on your 49th year with the Yankees, and hopefully they give you a cake for the 50th.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on, and the respect that you've given me, and thinking that I was important enough to have on your show. So thank you very much.